It's a story that's become heartbreakingly familiar in India. A huge crowd gathers, maybe for a festival or a pilgrimage. The energy is incredible. And then, in a flash, something goes wrong. Pressure builds, a barrier gives way, and celebration turns into absolute catastrophe. We've seen it happen again and again. So today, we're going to dig into why these crowd crushes aren't just random, tragic accidents. They're actually the result of a predictable and totally preventable pattern. All right, let's get into it.
Just take a look at this timeline. You've got the Sabarimala crush back in 2011, where the crowd control system just wasn't ready for a surge of people that everyone knew was coming. Jump to 2024, the Hathras disaster, where the number of people was literally 3 times what was allowed. And then the recent collapse in Srikakulam, an unregistered temple with just one way in and one way out. See, these are not isolated events. They're all points on a map that reveal a very clear and honestly, a very depressing pattern.
And here's the key thing to understand. One time, the trigger might be a sudden burst of rain. Another time, maybe it's a rumor that spreads through the crowd and causes a panic. But those are just the sparks. The real problem, the reason these things turn deadly, is that the whole setup, the architecture of the event, was a disaster waiting to happen. It's a system problem, not a single unlucky moment.
So, let's pull back the curtain on this failure architecture. What does it actually look like? What are the common ingredients that keep showing up and creating these absolutely lethal conditions?
Well, it almost always boils down to these 4 critical points of failure. First, you've got shared entry and exit points. I mean, think about it. You have a wave of people trying to get in, crashing against a wave of people trying to get out. It's a guaranteed bottleneck. Second, a massive capacity overshoot. Just way too many people are letting to a space that can't handle them. Third, weak and uncertified structures. We're talking temporary barricades that were never tested to hold back the immense pressure of a crowd. And finally, number 4, no real-time monitoring. The people in charge are essentially flying blind, with no idea how dangerously dense the crowd is becoming until it's far too late.
And this quote right here just nails it. Public safety isn't a thing, it's a process. And when it fails, it's almost never because of one little mistake. It's the whole system. It's that perfect storm of using the same gate for entry and exit, letting way too many people in, using flimsy barricades, and having no eyes on the crowd density. It is, at its core, a total system failure.
Okay, now here comes the truly maddening part of this whole story. This is not some impossible problem we don't know how to solve. In fact, India already has a detailed official blueprint for preventing these exact kinds of tragedies.
And that blueprint exists in 2 key documents. You've got the National Disaster Management Authority, the NDMA, guidelines from 2014, and the National Building Code, or NBC. And look, these aren't some obscure academic papers. They are the official national rule books written for the specific purpose of stopping these disasters from happening. And this slide just lays it out so clearly, it's almost unbelievable. On the left, you have the 4 failures we just talked about. And on the right, the official guidance that directly tells you how to prevent every single one of them. How to manage entry and exits, how to calculate safe capacity, what kind of certified structures to use, how to monitor crowd density. It's all there. The knowledge exists.
So that brings us to the big, unavoidable question, right? If the blueprint for safety is already written down, why on earth does this keep happening?
Well, the answer isn't a deficit of knowledge. It's not that we don't know what to do. The real deficit, it's a critical gap in enforcement. Let this number sink in for a second. 80%. Nearly 80% of stampedes in India happen at religious gatherings. Now, that is not a coincidence. It points directly to the places where the gap between knowing the rules and actually following them is the absolute widest.
So what do we mean by an enforcement gap? Well, in simple terms, it means that these massive events are often given the green light to go ahead without a license that is strictly tied to a safety plan. There's no one checking to make sure that the NDMA guidelines are actually being followed before thousands of people show up. But here's the hopeful part. This is a solvable problem. The path forward is to stop treating these events like spontaneous gatherings and start treating them like what they are, complex systems that need to be professionally engineered for safety. So what does an engineered safety system actually look like? Well, for starters, it means you don't get a license unless you have a safety plan that follows the NDMA and NBC codes to the letter. It means you calculate capacity not just by how big the space is, but by how fast people can get out in an emergency. It means using certified barricades that you know can take the pressure. And of course, it means using real-time analytics to monitor the crowd. It's a professional, data-driven approach to keeping people safe. And we know for a fact this works.
Sabarimala is the ultimate proof of concept. After the 2011 tragedy, look at the changes. They went from choked pathways to a controlled, one-way flow of people, from having no idea what was happening to real-time density control, from flimsy infrastructure to certified structures. They completely shifted from being reactive to being proactive. It can be done, it has been done.
So, at the end of the day, it all comes back to this one central point. The problem isn't that we lack the knowledge to prevent these disasters. The core deficit is a failure to enforce the knowledge we already have.
Which leaves us all with one final and really the most important question. India has the blueprint for safety. It's been proven to work. The only question that remains is whether it has the political and social will to actually enforce it, everywhere, every single time.